Okay, class, today's topic is on rotations, and at the end of this lesson, hopefully you will learn to be able to draw and describe the rotation of a figure or a point about a point of rotation, typically the origin, for a given angle of rotation. Now, the angle of rotations we're going to be discussing will be only three different angles. That'll be 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first example is 90 degrees, and what we have here is point A, and the rotation is counterclockwise of 90 degrees. Okay, so we've got point A going to A prime, and the angle of rotation is 90 degrees. So how do we find A prime given A? So the rule for a 90-degree rotation is as follows. That is, the rotation of 90 degrees about the origin, which is right here at 0, 0, of x, y is going to be negative y, x. Okay? So let's take a look at coordinate A. Coordinate A is at 2, 3. So we're going to go ahead and draw 2, 3. Okay. Now, following this rule, what we see is that we're going to negate y. So we're going to take this y and make it negative, and then we're going to flip it around. Okay. And so the resulting coordinate is going to be negative 3, 2. Okay. Now, what you'll see is if you take a look at where A prime is, you'll notice that it's at negative 3, 2. Okay, so this rule is correct. Okay, so let's break this, the steps down so that we're clear on how to do this correctly to avoid making some potential mistakes. Okay, so step number 1. Step 1, write the coordinate. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be 2, 3. All right, and then step 2, we're going to negate y. Okay, so we're going to take 2, 3, and we're going to negate it. So now it's going to be 2, negative 3. And then step 3, flip x and y. Okay, so now the final step here is to flip x and y, so we get negative 3, 2. And this is our answer. Okay, so if you follow these 3 steps, whenever you're rotating, it'll minimize potential errors. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is 180 degrees. Okay, so here we've got point A, and it's rotated 180 degrees, counterclockwise again, to A prime. Okay, so what is the rule for this one? So if we have a rotation of 180 degrees about the origin, okay, again, the origin is 0, 0. We've got this rotation of 180 degrees of any coordinate x, y. It's going to be negative x, negative y. Okay? So let's take a look at what coordinate A is. Coordinate A is 2, 3. Okay? So then 180 degrees would be the opposite of x, which would be negative 2, and then the opposite of y, which is negative 3. Okay? And you'll see that with this point right here, we have a negative 2, negative 3. Okay, so that rule lines up. Okay, now the steps for doing this is a little shorter. So step number 1, okay, write the coordinate. Okay, so in this case, our coordinate is 2, 3. Okay, and then step 2, we're going to negate both the x and y. Okay, so we just negate the 2 and negate the 3, and that becomes our answer. Okay, so for 180 degrees, you'll notice that we did not have to flip the x and y's. We just negated both the x and the y. Okay, so that's 180 degrees, and let's go ahead and move on to the last example, which is 270 degrees. Okay, so here we have point A, and it's rotated 270 degrees counterclockwise, and we land at A prime. Okay, so what is the rule for 270 degree rotation? So if we have a rotation of 270 degrees about the origin of x comma y, then the new coordinate after rotation will be y comma negative x. Okay, so for example, let's take a look at point A. Point A is again 2 comma 3. Okay, so then if we rotate that, that's going to be 3 comma negative 2. Okay, so again, to avoid making potential mistakes, I'm going to give you a 3-step process. Okay, step 1, write the coordinates. So in this case, we have 2 comma 3. Okay, and then step 2, we're going to negate x. Okay, so then we're going to write the coordinate again, except we're going to make x negated. So this is now negative 2 comma 3. And then the third step is to flip the x and y. Okay, so at this point we can rotate or flip the y and the x's, and this becomes 3 comma negative 2. Okay, and that becomes our answer. Okay, so at this point we learn how to rotate a point, okay, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. Now, if you're given a polygon, okay, or a triangle or some sort of shape, you're going to do the same exact thing. All you need to do is take the points and rotate each one at a time with whatever angle that is given to you, and that will give you the rotated object or shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over the rules again. So for 90 degrees, the rotation rule of 90 degrees about the origin of x comma y is going to be negative y comma x. Okay, and then for 180 degrees, the rotation rule for 180 degrees rotated about the origin of x comma y is just going to be negative x comma negative y. Okay, and then lastly, for 270 degrees, the rotation of 270 degrees about the origin of x comma y is going to be y comma negative x. Okay, so let's take a look. When we're talking about a 90 degree or 270 degree rotation, okay, the end result is that the x and y will be flipped and become y and x. The only difference is with the 90 degrees, it is the y that's negated, whereas with the 270 degrees, the x is negated. Okay, 180 degrees is the only one that does not flip the x and y's. However, both the x and the y's are negated. Okay, I hope that was fairly clear and made sense to you. If any of this was confusing or if you just need a refresher, please go back to the beginning of this recording and listen to it again. Thank you.